Mrs. Victoria Gray Adams, and I remember her so well when we were organizing back in the 60s again around the right to vote. She was a cohort of Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer and Mrs. Annie Devine.
She had been a school teacher. She'd been to college. She could move. So she had made a very firm decision to be part of the movement.
Mrs. Gray's work was very similar to any activist during that particular time, conducting mass meetings, going door to door, organizing people to go to the courthouses to register, to get the right to vote for our people, particularly in counties that had a black majority. And of course, each part of the state had its own way of discouraging us from getting that right. But again, she was one woman who did not allow those situations to stop or deter her.
She would say, as a child, I was ornery and never accepted everything. It was hard for my family. And she'd say, but that prepared me to be a freedom fighter and a conscientious objector to things that were wrong. And then she would say she felt called by God.
Just a dynamic, learned woman. She later became a minister.
She said, the scripture that moved me was Isaiah. Whom shall I send? And she said, I said, here am I, Lord, send me.
So she had all of those things in her because she felt I had this opportunity. How am I not going to teach and train people that there is a higher power that is looked out for all of us?
She was not just using these faith words, but her audience certainly listened when she said, I've been called. This is my duty, and it's your duty too. Everybody has to be involved. You can help paint a sign about voting to take down to the courthouse, even if you can't go. And some of the people who were risking their lives and had been in prison say, we need them all to march. And she would teach the rest of us, they'll march tomorrow. They'll vote next year. Let's do what they're ready to do.
Her efforts in organizing selective buying campaigns and boycotts of merchants who were not kind to black people was again a challenge for her, because that meant that she was in the forefront. She was on the line, her life was on the line, and could have been taken at any moment because they knew who she was. She didn't try to hide it, as none of us did, because we were there because we knew we had to do what we were trying to do, even if it meant taking our lives.
A boycott gave people something they could do by not doing something. We had learned that, Dr. King taught that out of Alabama.
It was very, very difficult to do business with the merchants who would put their Klan sheets on at night and keep us from getting the right to vote, and then go uptown the next day and buy their groceries.
But it also let the white people in the community where you had the boycott know that black people were standing up.
Mrs. Victoria Gray was one of those women who was very, very out front, very, very outspoken, and was able to articulate the message that we cannot spend our money with people who don't respect us. We had to even file a lawsuit just to get a courtesy title, just get a Mrs. put in front of our names at the bank or at establishments. And so there was just so many dynamics to this civil rights movement.
She saw her role as being the teacher, being the foundation leader, and when someone needed to step forward and do something public, she could do that. She ran for Congress with Mrs. Hamer in the Delta in the '64 election, and with Mrs. Annie Devine.
Even though we knew we did not have the representative number of people to vote successfully for her, somebody had to run.
Victoria was one of the first 3 black women on the floor of the U.S. House of Congress.
And of course, her campaign was about mobilization. It was about information. It was about encouraging people that if we get this right to vote, we can occupy these seats and we can change things.
Was she defeated? No. Did she win everything she was fighting for? No.
She did not allow that to discourage her, because again, she had to come back to Mississippi and continue training our people as to what it means to be a first-class citizen.
Was it an important step? Yes. Was it a leap? Yes.
That was what her campaign was about in 1964. Mobilization, information, and encouragement.
She was ready to take a tiny step, to leap, and to know if she came back to Mississippi with that kind of publicity, she might be killed.
As long as she lived, she would try and advocate for change, because there were people who came and they went. But when it's in you, you carry it to your grave. And of course, she never gave up until she became ill and passed away. And so this is the difference. You're in it, but is it in you?
She thought of herself with all humility and amazement that God has called me to be a prophet and using me, and that inside you is strength. She was a rock to the rest of us.
And so her legacy will certainly go down as one of a courageous woman, a determined woman, and one who would not and did not give up.
I'm happy to join the Heritage Award this evening to pay special tribute to Ms. Victoria Jackson Gray Adams. Ms. Gray Adams was a full-time civil rights activist and became field secretary of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. She, along with the great Mississippian Fannie Lou Hamer, as well as Ms. Annie Devine, were the national spokespersons for the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party and attended the Democratic Convention in Atlantic City. These women were the guests of honor and the floor of the United States House of Representatives. But more importantly, Ms. Gray Adams was the first woman to run for national office in the state of Mississippi. Victoria Adams is deserving of this award, so I compliment the audience tonight for giving Victoria Gray Adams this excellent recognition, and keep the faith.